Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. I've got 3 projects today for you, but I'm also doing a detailed tutorial on using hot glue in your molds. So my first item is a terracotta vase or urn. It's a rather large piece that I thrifted, and it's been painted or put a glaze on the outside of it. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting some Dixie Belle French linen paint on it. And this is an older little bottle of paint, so it's gotten a little bit thicker. So I actually only put 1 coat on it. Now there was a little bit of like built up that moss that maybe people put in like faux arrangements. So I had to kind of dig that out. And it was painted right inside. So even though I'm not going to be putting a live plant in it, I wanted to paint the inside of it just to kind of cover up that first part. Now, on this particular project, I'm using air dry clay, and it's the DOS air dry clay. I get it off of Amazon, and it's fairly inexpensive. And I am using the IOD Swags mold. And so just watch as I put this in the mold. I make sure to dust it with cornstarch. And I'm not sure if you noticed, I just have a can of cornstarch that just sits on my crafting table, and it stays open, and I have like a little brush that I keep right inside of it. And anytime I get through using the cornstarch, I just put the brush back in it so that I don't have to worry about using a different brush. So I push it all in, and the IOD molds have that little micro rim edge on it, but I always like to use like a little credit card to smooth out the top of it. And then it's really easy to come out of the mold. Now I know you've seen me do this before. This is one of those biscuit cutters. Maybe you're making dough for a pie and you have to kind of cut it while you're making it. Then I use that for larger pieces. And I flip it over and I put Titebond glue on it and then attach it to the urn. Now I like to go all around the little edges and just gently push them down so that they will adhere. But I did notice that on this one in particular, it was harder to get it in the little grooves because the grooves in this vase were a little bit deeper than what they normally would be. Now, while it's still wet, I very gently go ahead and paint over it with Dixie Belle French linen. Now, after that, I go ahead and put clear wax on it after it dries, and now I'm using Dixie Belle Grunge Gray wax. And I love the effect that it gives. So I used this in my previous video, and I think it's becoming one of my new favorite finishes. So I brush it on, and then I just use a shop towel to kind of wipe that excess off. If you've never used dark wax, it is extremely important to put clear wax on it first, because if you don't, and you decide you don't like the dark wax, it will not come off. And it also won't blend as well if you don't have that clear wax on it. So it's pretty important that you do that. But I really like the effect that it gives. And with the dark wax, you can brush it on and wipe it back off. But if you want some more on it, you can just put a little bit more and get the effect that you want. And then I just took some faux greenery and placed it on the inside of this urn. And then this is actually like a ceramic pumpkin. I think I got it at Hobby Lobby a couple years ago. But I just wanted you to see that, you don't always have to DIY a pumpkin to put on top. But I really like the way that this vase turned out. Now, this is one of those little cardboard pumpkins that you get at Dollar Tree. And I love these things. And this is actually some Dixie Belle paint that was on sale last year after like the fall season. So I don't really know if it's been discontinued or not. But the color is called Pumpkin Spice. And it's not a very bold orange. It's sort of muted. Now, These molds that I'm using now are Zuri molds, and you can find those at Micah Daughters, and I will make sure to put that in the description box below. And this mold has 3 different size leaves in it, and the detail on them is amazing, as well as a lot of the other Zuri molds that I've used before. So I painted one of the molds with one of those colors that was on sale called Cashmere, which is that sort of yellowy white one. And then I painted 2 of the leaves with Dixie Belle Barn Red, and then 2 of the leaves with Kudzu, which is the green color. And I just have them cascading down the front of the pumpkin. So I'm actually attaching the molds with hot glue, and that's really a good way to put it on. Now, sometimes you might use a mold that's made out of hot glue, but it's a certain piece that might need to be put on with Titebond. But this is something that is not going to get a lot of wear and tear. And sometimes when I paint the molds, when I paint the edges, sometimes the paint will get on the back of that little mold, but it's going to be glued on anyway. You can't see it. If it was going to be seen, then I would actually paint the entire back of the mold, but you don't see it on these. But aren't those some pretty colors together? I like it because it's the more traditional colors. But if you've been watching some of my videos, I've been doing some pretty non-traditional pumpkin and fall decor lately. Now, once I get them all on, then I'm using Annie Sloan clear wax. And I'm putting that all over. And now, when I'm using that brush, it's a real stiff brush. Some of that kind of gets caught down in the detail of those molds. So I kind of have to pull some of it out with like a little toothpick. Now, I'm going back and I'm using that Dixie Belle Grunge Gray to just add some depth to it. And I just really like it. So I put a little bit on and then I wipe it back off. And I love the way that it did on the molds. I think it just adds so much more to it. And I like that it brings out the detail, especially on that little white leaf or the cashmere leaf. Now, these are just some little faux leaves that I got at Hobby Lobby recently. And then I pulled off the little stems of some wheat off of a little thing that I got at Hobby Lobby. And I'm just gluing those on, once again, with hot glue. And then the little flowers that I'm going to actually glue on top to finish it off, those are some that I thrifted last year, I think. So I don't have a source for those. But it's just something pretty to add some fall decor to your home. Now, don't forget, your kids are starting school soon, and teachers love to have pretty little things like this sitting on their desk. So what do you think? Do you like these colors together? I love it. I really do. And I tend to go more toward the non-traditional colors, but I just like how all these colors came out together. Now, if you didn't want to put the leaves or the flower on there, you could put a bow on it. You could use some drop cloth, a little strip of drop cloth, and tie a little bow on it. You could put a little shabby rose on it. So if you're liking the video today, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did. All right, so here is the tutorial on hot glue. Now, I'm sped it up just a little bit, but I want you to really watch what I'm doing. Now, this is a hot glue gun that goes all the way up to, I believe, 220 degrees. So you have to be careful, but because I've used it for so long, I don't wear any finger protectors. Now, this one has a little bit wider trigger on it, or the little opening. And then I'm going to show you one that has a real narrow one. And all I do is I start at one end, and then I just work my way down. Now, I wanted to show you that this is also a Ryobi, and I think it only goes to like maybe 80 degrees, I'm not sure. But you can use these. You're just not going to get the same effect. Now, I'm showing you this mold in particular because it's got a lot of big spaces on it, but it also has detail on it. And one of the things that I wanted to remember to tell you is you do not have to put cornstarch when you put in hot glue, but it's in there because I don't clean my molds very much and get off that excess cornstarch because I just don't have time. And it doesn't affect it in any way because you're going to be painting it anyway. And then that's the little hot glue gun that's got the small trigger. But that's the one that has the wider little notch. And then this one has a little skinny one, which is great for getting in corners. And that's my Ryobi. Now that's what it looks like. And sometimes it's not going to come out completely even. So you might need to lay it back down in that mold and add the little bit of extra to it. Sometimes you can't see it until after that glue has dried. And see, I'm just going to lay it back in there, and I'm going to use that little teeny, the little part that comes where the glue comes out. I wish I knew what that name was. But I just kind of fill in those little parts that didn't mold. Because when you're putting it in that mold, it's kind of hard to see because it's so clear. And a lot of times you don't notice it until after it has dried. But it's a great way to use your hot glue guns. And on this one, I had to go back and fill in some little spots too. Now, trust me that I'm not an expert on hot glue, but I do like to use it. And then, once again, this is how it would look if you used it. Okay, this is my favorite project today. I've been looking on Pinterest lately, and I saw something like this, but it was something that looked more like plaster on a background. Well, I didn't have any of that. So this is just some heavyweight gesso. So I actually kind of spread it on and real uneven one morning before I went to go pick up the granddaughters. And then by the time I got back home in the afternoon, it was already dry. And I just kind of slapped it on there some. There was no rhyme or reason to it, but I wanted to give a real textured background. And so I only put it on the front and on the binding. And then I could make sure that I kind of scrape off around the edges so that it will be smoother on the edges. And then I just set it up to dry. Now, I'm painting the outside frame of this little box book with Dixie Belle Apothecary. And I'm leaving a long rectangle in the front that I don't paint. And then I just paint the whole thing. And then you'll see in just a minute why I'm doing that. But it's textured because of the heavyweight gesso. So you don't really brush this on. It's just easier to pounce it on. And then I go through and I paint the sides, the back, and up at the top and up at the bottom, because it looks like a book, but it's really a little box. And this one is really nice. There's actually like a little magnet that catches and it keeps it closed. And so I am not going to put gesso on the back. I only want it on the side. Now, what I'm going to do next is in that long rectangle, I'm going to be using Dixie Belle Chiffon Cream because I'm going to be putting some molds on the front. So on this first mold, I'm using the IOD Trimmings 2, and I make 2 pieces, and I put it on both sides, the long sides of the book box. And then I'm going to be using some molds up at the top and the bottom. And I go ahead and kind of trim it off with a little credit card. And then I'm going to actually go ahead and paint those molds before I glue them back on. And with the air dry clay, you can just kind of string it out just a little bit and then just push it down with your thumb and then go back and smooth it out. And that's done with a very gentle hand, but you'll notice that I hold on to it a little bit so that it won't pull up any. Now I'm going to be making 2 sets of these little molds from the IOD Olive Crest. And they kind of look like little parentheses. And then this next mold comes from the IOD mold called Fleur. And then I'm going to be using one more part of a mold down at the bottom. So see, I've got the ones to the side. Now I haven't glued them down yet. I'm just kind of spacing them. So I've got those little pieces on the side. And I have the little parentheses up at the top. And then I've got the Fleur de Lis. And then I make some more of those little parentheses. And then on that last, I make a little piece or a little part of a piece that also comes from Olive Crest. Now, one of the things that I want to mention is I painted it with the Rust-Oleum chiffon cream in the middle, but then I dry brushed some of that Apothecary onto it because you'll see it later. Now in the center of it, it's the IOD mold called Juliette, and I just made part of it, and I didn't know exactly how much I'd need. So I went on and made a bigger piece, and then I'm just kind of trimming off the pieces that aren't going to fit very well. Now, I know I'm using a lot of molds today, but, use whatever you've got. It doesn't have to be this specific ones, but I just wanted to do something that was really textured and just had a lot of drama to it. And so then what I did was, after all of that was dry, and I did paint those molds with the chiffon cream, then I put clear wax all over it, and then this is my last project, and yes, I'm using that Dixie Belle Grunge Gray, and this is where it really begins to pop. But I saw several different plaques on Pinterest, well, not several, a lot, where they did a lot of detail in the middle, and then they used some dark wax to really bring out all of that detail. But I love this piece. It is so beautiful. And I actually think that I might keep this one, but use it to give as a Christmas gift, and then maybe put a gift card inside. But I just think this is just drop dead gorgeous. So what do you think? I love it. So friends, I want you to just watch for just a minute while I'm putting this wax on. But I do want to mention to you that if you have any specific products that you want me to highlight in a video, leave me a comment in the box below. Because actually I had a viewer who asked if I would do a tutorial just using my hot glue gun. And so it just made it real easy to do this right now. And so if there's any specific thing that you would like to see done, just leave me a comment. And if I can, I will. And if I can't, then I'll just let you know. But I'll do my best to help. But thank you so much for all your sweet comments. Y'all are just the best. Now here's a final picture of it. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Oh, I love it. And I love all that detail. And see how that little Apothecary kind of pops out here and there on that texture? I wanted that little bit of Apothecary to show up and to make so that it all kind of blends well. And you could even use Apothecary on the center of it, and then the molds could just be the Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. But this is just my favorite piece today. So make sure to leave me a comment and tell me which one was your favorite piece today. So we had the urn that I put an air dry clay mold on. We have the book box that has air dry, and then the other one has hot glue. So make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Thank you so much, friends.